Jonathan Edwards was one of the great preachers. He had a sermon that was called Sinners in the Hands of an Angry God. And when he preached, it was loud, and it was strong, and it was worthy. And what he said was that God has got a real hot place ready for you. And you're going to be there real soon if you don't get your act together, and if you don't repent, and if you don't believe, that's where you're going. Sinners in the hands of an angry God. Some of us have a view of God that calls forth fear. Some people think that it's fear that truly motivates the human soul. Well, we'll think about that for a moment today. Here's another scene. It's a true scene. A friend of ours named Charlie. He's a preacher type. There's a certain church that wants him to come. It's one of these churches where the people decide whether they'll have their pastor or not. And so they're sitting together in the personnel committee. And the head of the personnel committee says to him, Charlie, tell us about yourself. And so Charlie begins. I'm a sinner. I'm still a sinner. I need God's grace. I've got some good stuff, but I've got some bad stuff. He said, let me tell you about some of my bad stuff. And he did. He said, I want to be an angel sometimes, and sometimes I act just like a demon. He said, I really wonder how God could use someone like me. And the story continued, and the people listened, and the people told their story. And then Charlie wrote us the following letter. This is the close of it. There was no longer a question as to whether or not I would become their pastor, because, you see, I already was. For we together had entered into the fullness of the mystery and were surrounded and embraced by grace and called to minister to one another. Fear or awe brought by grace, which really, truly moves us. In studying last week, I ran into a series of statements that I think extend this just a bit. And the very first thing is that when a person is serious about finding the nature of truth, you approach it with the sense of wonder of the scientist. Many times we put science and scientists down as if we were afraid of what they might discover. Are we not people seeking the truth? Is there anything to be afraid of if truth is our goal and our object? The ways, the means, the understandings, and the explanations will change. But one of the amazing things about the scientific mind is their commitment to the wonder of things. I can remember at Bay High School, and it's now an elementary school on the coast. It's still there, one of the few things still left at Bay St. Louis. We were brought to the lab, to the chemistry lab, and we had left some slides out the night before with various things on them, and mine was just a water slide. You notice how hard it is for Cajuns to say water? We say water, water, the water on the table, but water was on my slide. And so when Mr. Dubuisson gave me the slide to put under the little microscope, I put it under, and there was all kind of stuff in there, little things swimming and life going around. And I said, what's that? He said, well, some of it's bacteria, some of it's... And there it was, this whole world that I didn't know existed, right there. And I got to tell you, it was kind of awesome. The microscope lets us see a lot of little things that are really very big things, like the atom, like the neutrons, like the protons, like the quarks and the quarks. I love that. That's actually scientific language, you know. They're even asking questions now. They're wondering about the nature of reality. What is everything made of? And if we don't know what it's made of, why does it stick together? In Colossians 1:17, it says, Jesus is the glue that keeps everything stuck. I don't know. I kind of like that. But the telescope, you look out there. Immanuel Kant used to say, there are two things that move me to awe, the starry heavens and the moral law within. I think we need to take a look at the moral law within from time to time and recognize that it has to be informed, that it has to be given direction. But boy, the vastness of the universe. And the problem with most of us is we walk by it without ever looking. We pass awe without stopping. The other morning, I'd gone out, get the paper, and I put on my big old robe and had on my little flip-flops and going out to get the paper and did what I usually did. I usually just go out because it's cold and hustle right back in. But for some reason, I just stopped. And I put my hand up on the back end of the car and just looked up at the starry heavens above. through the trees in the urban era with all of the ambient light that cities provide. And there was a moment there where I just sort of wanted to stand on tiptoe. Wow. Amazing. The wonder of the scientist. Don't be afraid of investigation. Don't be afraid of looking deeply. Don't be afraid of looking far. Don't be afraid of looking wide, because when you do, you're going to find that on the other end and on every side and underneath are the everlasting arms of the eternal God. Second thing is the awe of the artist, the awesome sense of what art is really all about. Have you ever really looked at a piece of art? Sometimes people look at it and say, oh, that's no big deal. Somebody said the other day, wouldn't give 15 cents for the Mona Lisa. And a lot of that has to do with not understanding. A lot of that has to do with ignorance. But sometimes you look until you look past what appears in front of you to the very heart, to the very soul, to the very spirit of the one who creates art. It might be photographic art. It might be drawn art. It might be painted art. It might be the beauty of a ballet. I watch Kathy Thibodeau and say, how can anybody do that? And to the glory of God. Kathy Thibodeau's a ballet dancer who Uncle Charlie said was converted by me to Jesus. The fact is, it was her husband, whose name is Keith. Didn't have anything to do with me. But anyway, used to have a bishop. He's just recently a Bishop Stokes. So I have kidded about Bishop Stokes, so I want to pause for a minute and say that his wife Rose has died, and they were so close for so many years. I think married 64 years. He would say, that's my wife Rose. I call her that because that's her name. And, you know. But one time we were in a class, and it was a class on art. And it was the theology of art. And he brought in some impressionistic paintings and some really way out impressionistic paintings. And he said, this is not art. He said, this stuff here, it's not art at all. He said, there's no art in that. And I put my hand up and I said, can I say something? He said, will you use your mind this time or not, Mr. Tonkel? And I said, well, I have a little different point of view. And he said, well, go ahead and say it. He said, disseminate that silliness across the people. And so what I said, this is really terrible, but I said, Bishop, he wasn't a bishop then, he was the dean of the school. I said, Dr. Stokes, I don't know if you understand modern art. I said, you don't have to like it. I said, you don't even have to understand it. You have to see that it's an artist trying to say something. And something has caught them, and something has sort of overcome them, and this is the extension of who they are. And if it's a picture of a person that's distorted, maybe that's their view of the world. He said, you know, Mr. Tonkel, that's not real bad. He said, it's not real good either, but. All art doesn't accommodate itself to our concept of form, but all art that is true art, that is real art, that runs deep into the very source of things, is art that calls out of us an awesome response, the art of a singer singing, the art of a painter painting, the art of a sculptor sculpturing, the art of a man or a woman of faith testifying, the art of making oneself known from the inside out. It's pretty awesome. Our God is an awesome God. And then finally, the adoration of the saint. When you begin to understand this God that is truly God, the God has been made known to us in Jesus. What's so special about Jesus? Because he said, have you been told about the big bad God that's anxious to stick everybody in hell? Let me tell you about the God that's the good shepherd. Have you been hearing about the God that goes around and saying that everybody that's sick is sick because either they sinned or their grandparents sinned? He said, let me tell you, that's not it. Let me tell you about the God who wants your healing and your welfare. Everybody talks about the God that goes around sending wind and rain and storm and fire to destroy evil. Let me tell you about the God who is Lord of wind and fire, but the God who doesn't go around destroying evil. Did y'all read about it this week? It came up again about the preaching that says God sent Katrina to get the sinners in New Orleans. Well, he missed my hometown. I mean the French Quarter part. You know, I'm not trying to put God down. I'm saying when something bad happens, it's neat to interpret somehow God's presence in it. I always think God is present in the volunteers, in the Katrina teams, in the people who pray, in the people who bring water, in the people who bring food. But Jesus said that's not the way God is. God doesn't go around doing that kind of stuff. Now, Jesus is going to tell you in a cotton-picking minute that God is merciful, but is going to call us to accountability, that God is graceful, but that God is also just, that we're not going to go around doing a whole bunch of evil stuff to a whole lot of people and get away with it forever. No. But the question is this, and it's the bottom line, and I'm almost done. The question is, what motivates us to want to live in a particular and certain way better? To be scared to death or to be loved to life? To be scared that we might go to hell or to be thankful that we have been delivered from some things that have done us in and transformed into another place, standing in another spot? Got to tell you this quick story. It's the one that brought me to faith. Many of you know it. I never have identified the place where this happened, Meridian, Mississippi. There was a man there that spent all of his money on Friday nights, getting drunk and gambling, mistreated his family. He was an active alcoholic. One Friday night, his little girl said, could you come home? They got a message in her handwriting at the bar. You could always find him. I'm real sick and I want to talk to you. So he went home because he certainly loved the little girl. And the minute he got in the house, a little broke-down house with a piece of blanket separating the eating area from the sleeping area, military blanket. She said, Daddy, let me talk to you. She said, I've got pneumonia real bad, and I don't know if I'm going to get well or not, but just in case I don't, I want to tell you I love you. He said, what? I want to tell you I love you even though you hit me, and even though you curse all the time, and even though you knocked Mama down the other day. I want to tell you I love you. And he said, why do you want to tell me this? She said, because I just need to say it. And he said, why do you need to say it? And she said, because I went to Bible school at this church, and they taught me that's how God loves us, even when we're mean and wrong. And I just want you to know I love you. He went out the back door of that little house and got in the mud. It was a rainy night, cold. He said, God, if you can use the likes of me, I'm ready. A series of events across the years have allowed me to know that that man stayed on target from that moment of moving from a fearful parent to a loving one, husband.